Well, I used to be in a band, and I was like the worst member of the band. And so after a while, I realised that I wanted to pursue a creative endeavour, but maybe music wasn't the thing for me. So I sort of hunted around, and I got a friend of mine to write a script, and we made this little short film, and I fell in love with it. And I guess I was about 17 at the time. And from that point forward, I just carried on making films. I think I am always looking for a great story, something that takes me somewhere that I haven't necessarily been before in some way, and that can be really varied. That doesn't mean to say that it's necessarily completely another world. It might just be a slightly different viewpoint on a familiar subject, or it might be set in space, or it might be a different time zone, or whatever it is. It's just looking for a different perspective to gain empathy with somebody that you might not usually have been have seen their point of view before. But I really move around in the work that I do in terms of genres. But I think that overall, I am quite an optimistic person, and I'm always looking for stories that sort of celebrate our humanity, I suppose. And I believe that humans are flawed and complicated, but also wonderful. I've been doing a job in Texas and listening to a lot of country music, and country had always been on my radar, with Johnny Cash or Emmylou Harris or Dolly Parton, but sort of the more well-known artists certainly. But being in Texas, I listened to a lot of live music, a lot of stuff on the radio, and it sort of somehow seemed to seep into my bones. And then, coincidentally, when I came back from that job, I had a cup of tea with Faye Ward, the producer of Wild Rose, and she said, "Oh, I've got this script. I wonder if you might have a read of it." And at the time, I was already signed on to do another project, and but I had heard the script, and I'd known Nicole Taylor, the writer, for some time, and I'd heard it was a really good script, and I'm always up for reading a script, particularly as the project that I was on was taking longer, as it always does, than I had anticipated. I read the script, and within about 2 pages, I was like, not only do I love this writing, but I also know exactly who the person to play this character is. And I finished the script, and nothing changed really into my feeling towards that script. I loved it just as much as I did, if not more, at the end than I had at the beginning. It's very rare that you read something that you're like, I'm in. And this was one of those projects. But not only did I think, I'm into this story, but I know how to tell this story. And that's how it came about. I auditioned Jessie very shortly after she'd come out of drama school. And immediately I realised that he was someone with a real effervescence and a strength of spirit that is uncommon. And I cast her in War and Peace, and we worked together, and we had a great relationship on that, because she is very inspiring as an actor and as a person. Director-actor relationship is a two-way thing, and we both enjoyed working with each other and getting the best out of each other. And as a result of that, we were looking for something else to work on going forwards. And so that when Wild Rose script landed in my lap, I had already been thinking about something for Jessie, and the character, who was so strong on the page, just seemed like a fantastic fit for Jessie. And that's just talking about the acting. And then in addition to that, I knew that Jessie was a great singer as well. And the fact that the part demanded this musicality and this great singing voice in conjunction with this free spirit and this sort of powerful, messy, wonderful woman was a great fit, and it just had to be her. I think we have a long tradition of working class stories about people that break free of that or their surroundings and sort of triumph against the odds. And certainly a lot of the films that I grew up with, such as The Full Monty, such as The Commitment, such as Billy Elliot, are sort of great films that I've always loved watching. And this is different, it's not, I think times have moved on, and our way of telling stories has changed slightly, and obviously our social and political circumstances have changed slightly, but it's still a similar thing. It's someone who's trying to break free from the box that she's been placed into. And she uses everything that she has to try and do that, but it's not a simple thing, and it's not a question of if you can break free, you'll be happy. It's there are two very difficult things that she's trying to balance. So yes, it was a hard sell because, Jessie at the time wasn't particularly well known, and it's not ostensibly a commercial prospect, but it was a really brilliant script, and she's a really phenomenal actress, and Faye's a great producer, and so it sort of came together quite nicely. Getting the balance between humour and drama, I think, is always tricky, but actually it's almost trickier from the outside looking in than from the inside looking out. And by that I mean, once you're working on the project, you have to immerse yourself in the character and the world to such a degree that you tell the story and make the decisions that's right for the character. And because there was such strength in the foundations in terms of the script and how that character was fleshed out, that never really felt like a particular challenge. It was never like how much comedy versus how much drama. It was just what is right for this particular story and this particular character. And as she's quite a impassioned, fiery, humorous character, then inevitably you get some comedy that comes out of that, as well as the pain and the difficulty and the joy and everything else that goes along with it. I think some of the music was the most challenging part of the film to realise. Partly the fact that we decided very early on that everything had to be recorded live because that was so intrinsic to Jessie's performance. Partly because it had to work. This is a film about someone aspiring to be a singer, and who, in order for you to buy the narrative, you had to buy that she had the talent. Obviously, Jessie has that talent, which makes it significantly easier, but you still have to deliver on the songs and on the performance of those songs, not just Jessie, but in the band and how the band comes together and how the band performs, and also in some of the songwriting that we did as well. And so, again, there were lots of people involved with that. But, getting to a place where we could perform live, and every scene where there was music, we were performing live, and we had musicians in cupboards, and we had a kind of complicated recording rig. And we also had, things like the end song where we kind of put a pitch out, and fortunately enough, we found Mary Steenburgen, who wrote a song, bizarrely, for the end, and it all worked out wonderfully. For the end song, it's the finale of the whole film, so we knew it had to be something that really hit home. And we were working with Universal Music, and we put out a tender to songwriters throughout the world, but specifically focused in Nashville, because we obviously knew it had to be a country song. We got back, hundreds of submissions, most of which were really good, but none of them quite connected emotionally. And so we were feeling sort of rather despondent, because it's the last place you want to feel like you've compromised or you haven't quite delivered the emotional connection that you are looking for that final finale. And then we got this song in from, I don't think any of us quite realised it was Mary Steenburgen to begin with, but it immediately resonated with us, and we sent it around to each other, and we're like, we found it, I think we found it. And we're like, who's written this? And it was actually Mary Steenburgen with two other people that she wrote it with. And her story, I think one of the reasons why it really connects is because she's an actress, and she must have read that script and really embodied that part and written the song truly from the part of that character. Whereas I think that some of the other songwriters potentially just read a synopsis or a short thing rather than immerse themselves in it. I think I've heard the phrase that you have many marriages on a film set. To begin with, it's your designer, then it's your DP, and then it's your editor. But first and foremost for me, it's the producer. If you can form a really good bond with your producer, then that sets you in good shape going through the whole process, because obviously you work as such a close-knit team. And Wild Rose, it was Faye Ward, and she is one of the very best. And so the fact that we were a strong team from the beginning meant that we could combat any challenges. Nicole Taylor, the writer, again, we were sort of a trio, and then Jessie. What I really like to do, and is always works really well for me, is if there's a core team of people that are very close, and we all have slightly different responsibilities, but we're all communicating very well, then that kind of sees us through the whole process. And that's probably, there are a number of people that kind of come into and out of that group, but it's the closer you can be with people, the better. Obviously, the DP is a very strong relationship on set, but the actors as well. Really, I find that the that the actors are probably the most important thing for me on set. You know, hopefully by the time I come to set, all the other staff has been talked about. Everyone knows what they're doing. I work with George Steele, who's a DP that I've worked with for a long time. We have such a good relationship with him and our crew surrounding us. But even like script supervisor Marnie Paxton is someone I've worked with a lot, and we just have a tight relationship. So that on the day I can be, they enable me to be free to just think about what's happening in the moment, and most of that is probably to do with performance. It's so hard to say who my filmmaking hero is. I think it's many, many heroes. You know, I was actually hearing talk of the two popes at the moment. It reminded me that City of God was one of the films that was really seminal to me. But Paul Thomas Anderson to to the Coen brothers, but all for different reasons, to Sergio Leone, or David Lynch, Andrew Arnold, there's but all different people for different reasons and different contexts. So, yeah, it's very hard to say.